Hello. Welcome to Mom Games Badly. There are plenty of moms out there who are fantastic video gamers. I am not one of them, but I still enjoy playing. I hope you'll enjoy hanging out with me while I play. This is the Barrow. The Barrow is an interactive horror story about obsession, denial, and the darkness of the northern Swedish forests. Time to complete is around 15 to 30 minutes. At one point, the background will shift to white. It should work on a phone or a touchscreen, but is best experienced with a mouse. May add some sound effects, but no jump scares. Marcus Hansen. Jellyfish on itch.io. All right, let's make this bigger and begin. How do? Oh, there we go. Growing up, I hated how my mother kept the lights on around the clock. She'd start cleaning the house around dusk, as if the everyday bustle and drone of the vacuum cleaner could dispel the dark. Meanwhile, the night draped itself over the house and surrounding forest like black snow, draining all color and killing the cacophony of the birds. It fascinated me that she could function, knowing that terror awaited her at the end of each day, knowing that even in the morning, the night sky only contracted like tensing muscles. We lived in the north of Sweden, in a former logging town called Askmark. The name translates to ashland, which suits its tight, grubby streets and blackened log houses, the spruce boles half-rotted and warped. On the map, it was nothing more than a bald patch in an ocean of forest. For 2/3 of the year, the sun barely rose over the horizon. Torture for my mother, but for me, an escape. When the sun was low, the world became a dramatic mystery of lengthening shadows. I explored the outskirts of town and played among the mossy stones, long lines of them forming shapes and circles. I tried to imagine the people who raised the stones. Before the arrival of the grocery stores, the insulated homes, double-glazed windows, and electric lights. Perhaps even before the indigenous Sami people. Did they actually try to hunt, stumbling through the gloom? Did they sleep on frost-speckled moss beneath snow-laden firs? I couldn't fathom it. So one night, when I was 8, my parents found me curled up under a tree, teeth chattering in the dark, Dad's hunting knife gripped in my hand. I wanted to feel what they had felt, those forgotten people of the forest, but all I felt was the cold. Still, the forest was my place. I could disappear in it, imagine myself a character from the stories, a weathered wanderer. The trees were a blur as I sprinted and leapt, swinging my stick, cutting the heads off of trolls. For a few years it was my kingdom of moss and pine. That ended when I was 11. An icy blast hit the back of my head, followed by snow sliding down my neck and under my shirt. My eyes stung, but I held back the tears. "You're supposed to dodge," Oliver laughed, crouching to make another snowball. He was my friend, but sometimes I hated him. We were the same age, but I was comically small next to him. He'd grow up to be a giant. Everyone said so. "Get him on a hockey team," they said. But there was no hockey in Askmark, and one can't expect a kid with power not to use it. That's where I came in. He'd knock me down without warning in front of the other kids, then lift me off the ground by the arm and dangle me like a limp doll. He hurt me often and enthusiastically, but he didn't let any of the other kids do so. So I thought, maybe it was okay to bear a little roughness, to have a giant on my side. Oliver raised his arm to pelt me again and froze, staring past me. For a moment, the white forest around us was perfectly quiet. The crunch of snow behind me made me turn. The moose was only an arm's length away. Colossal antlers spanned the sky. The muzzle was crusted in blood and blew hot, stinking breath into my face. Oh, you do not want to mess with a moose. Moose are huge. They are huge. Then it brushed right past me, trailing bright blood in the snow. They're also capricious. They do what they want. Sometimes that means being gentle and leaving you alone. It ignored Oliver, too. A jagged bone, pink and glistening, jutted out of the skin in its back leg. It limped away between the boles, and we followed in hushed awe. As morning gave way to midday, we drew far out from our usual stomping grounds. The snow and the sky joined as one whiteness, the pines hanging between them like a rain of pendants. When the moose stepped into the air, vertigo gripped me, but as we got closer, we realized it was a large mound. It was completely bare and rose almost to the height of the trees around it. As the moose reached the top of the hill, stark against the blinding sky, it fell. Away. Oliver rushed to the top and skidded to a halt. Edging closer, I saw a hole, which was a black nothingness on the snowy hill. At its widest point, it was about 3 strides across. Snow clung to the steep walls near the top in strips. But then it drove straight into darkness. A single rattling breath drifted from the hole, followed by silence. The stench of rotting meat assaulted me, and that's when I saw the heaps of snow, most of them small, all around the hill. Some of them hadn't yet been fully covered. Foxes, birds, the empty rib cage of a boar, all facing the hole. Oliver was breathless with excitement. "Try jumping across," he said. "Bet you can." I stared at the overgrown boy with terror pooling in my gut. Options flickered through my mind. Distract him? Offer something? Beg? I shifted my gaze to the black pit. Just looking into it felt like wading into cold water. And through some alchemy of the guts, my terror turned to anger. Not the hot wrath of thundering blood, but the cold disdain of slowly crushing glaciers. Was that his first thought? To jump over it? Didn't he wonder what this place was? Couldn't he for once just be my friend? "Go on," he said. "Do it." I stepped forward, hating how my knee trembled. Another step, then I broke into a run. As Oliver turned, I shoved. His expression was that of someone who just soiled themselves. His arms paddled the air as he toppled and vanished into the hole. Time turned solid. Until the wet crunch. It took 10 years for that day to return to me. I was 21. I was finishing the last hour of my nursing shift at the ER when a disheveled man stumbled through the doors, delirious and limping. I helped him into a wheelchair and took him to a room where the doctor would see him. When the doctor arrived, the man complained of a pain in his leg. After only a glance at the filth-caked trousers, the doctor grabbed a pair of shears to cut open the trouser leg. When he began, the smell filled the room. Rotting meat. The forest crashed down around me and the ground fell away, down into the dark, with Oliver. "Go deeper, friend. That's where the oldest bones are. Look deeper." Maggots wriggling in bone marrow, pressure against the soles of my feet, the carcasses shifting, falling away. A face rising from flesh, drowned in dirt. It opened dead eyes, and I screamed. The hospital floor was cold. I raised my head and saw the doctor's wry expression. A squeamish nurse was no good. After treating the patient's leg, he took a quick look at my head where it had struck the floor. Just a bump, but he sent me home for the day. The moment I was through the door, I scrambled for pen and paper. God, that face. Heavy-boned and pooled in shadows. It was the few bits that seemed human that made it so terrible. It hummed now in the recesses of my mind. I drew it again and 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 again. I drew it. I'm no artist, but I got closer with each attempt, until the face on the paper finally held a feeble semblance of what I had seen at the bottom of the hole. It wasn't enough. It felt wrong on paper, flimsy and flat, dead. I needed wood to carve. 2 hours later, I had blocks of lime wood and a carving knife from the craft store. Like the drawing, I needed practice. This time I was patient. I carved for days, weeks. When I wasn't working at the hospital, I was carving. I didn't speak to anyone. My phone accumulated missed calls. I shrugged off friends at the hospital, mumbled that it was a bad time. As I carved, my memories of the mound replayed in my mind. Not just a mound, but a barrow. A barrow built by whom, and for what? It was clear to me, even then, that something within me was slipping. It's hard to explain the absolute need I felt to bring my vision to life. It felt like self-preservation, like building a seawall around my sanity as the tide rose. Hold on. Look up. I think Barrow is a grave, perhaps? Barrow? Barrow is primarily a prehistoric burial mound. The meaning of Barrow is mountain, mound. All right. Two months later, my fingers scarred, calloused, and bandaged, I held in my hands a lump of wood as tall as the broad side of my palm. I remember staring at it. It was a thing screaming out of the depths of time. It had all the building blocks of a face, but engorged and pulled out of place. A wide, caterpillar-lipped mouth, a meaty, bell-shaped nose, and the eyes, they had hooks, those eyes. I realized with a start that I was sitting in darkness. It had been morning just a second ago. My eyes felt like sandstone marbles. Looking down at the totem in my hands, I knew I had a choice to make. Despite its terrible visage, the thing comforted me. I can't deny I was also proud of what I had created. It made me feel like an artist, compelling and complicated. A part of me wanted it close to me, yet another part of me quailed before it. If I were to seal it away, would it be cowardice or wisdom? Oh, I see. This is a choice. Okay. I set it on my bedside table, and that night I slept like the dead. My anxieties melted away. There was an internal unhooking that comes with completing something you've been putting off, and it made me feel at peace. The next day I finally checked my phone. 2 missed calls from my dad. I sighed and phoned him up. My dad was a hard, brittle man who, like chalk, had been worn to a nub over time. A conversation with him was like trying to apply that remaining pebble to a chalkboard. His voice was even stonier than usual. Your mother's in the hospital. Stroke. The doctors think she only has a few days left. He gave me the name of the hospital and hung up without another word. I hadn't spoken to my parents since I'd left home to study nursing 3 years earlier. We never quite aligned, and we'd left it at that. I think we were both happy to live our lives separately. Still, I felt compelled to be there at the end. I remember the hospital room clearly. In a word, faded. The sheets were gray from 1,000 washes. The floor was a blotchy, muted pink, the fuller Bordeaux still visible in the corners where shoes and mop never reached. And my mother, she was the most faded of all. There was so little left of her. I wondered how such a thin vessel could hold anything at all. No particular memories of her arose in me. I gazed down at her unconscious form and saw the hole. She was standing at the edge, her eyes closed. How afraid she must be if she knew the darkness that awaited her. I leaned closer. She was almost there. A little push, perhaps. The gift of peace. I peered deeper, and the chill was silk on my skin. My dad opened the door. Whatever he saw in my face, mere inches from my mother's, froze him in his tracks. For a moment, he struggled for words. "You get out," he managed, then tensed, eyes bulging. He clutched his chest and stumbled back into the hallway. As the doctors began performing CPR on the floor where he'd fallen, I left the hospital. My parents were dead. If not now, then soon. And I felt at peace. I felt clean. In the years that followed, the Barrow loomed a little larger in my mind each day, and the hole that pierced it grew wider. For a while, I continued my work as a nurse. Each death of a patient was like a chilled drink on a sweltering day. I know how that sounds, but I can't describe it any other way. I would never hurt anyone, but each death soothed me nonetheless. It felt right, like a spelling mistake corrected. It became a problem. I lingered too long around patients near death. I stared. Colleagues began to shun me. When I realized the doctors no longer trusted me, I quit. I tried to understand what was wrong with me. Therapy didn't work because I couldn't tell them the truth, so I read books. I dismissed obsession and even psychopathy. I was never devoid of empathy and abhorred to witness anyone suffer. The problem wasn't me. Oliver. That wasn't my fault. I was influenced. I was afraid. It was the hole on the hill, the face, the darkness, all of it. Whatever it was, I couldn't blame myself. A year after quitting my nursing job, I decided to return to Askmark. I was 30, and I had spent my life circling a spring I'd never tasted. As I crossed my doorstep, I hesitated. The soothing presence of the totem tugged at me. I considered whether to bring it or leave it behind. Was it a key or a curse? Perhaps it was neither. Let's go down the dark path for this time. The totem belonged with me. I was certain it contained a truth I'd yet to fully grasp. Askmark was small when I'd left it, but now seemed smaller still, in that peculiar way that reality shrinks next to childhood memories. Under the pale summer sun, without snow to hide under, the walls of the more modern concrete homes were stained with dirt and mold. The forest breathed at the edge of the town. For days I wandered the town, aimless, sleeping in my car. Perhaps I was gathering courage. I recognized only a few people from my childhood, now so aged and firmly lodged in the grooves of their daily routine that I doubt they even noticed me. One gray morning, as rain hung in the air, I was passing near my old house when a hand grabbed me roughly by the arm. You! That is you, isn't it? The man's face was almost blotted out by his nest of beard and hair, and although I knew him to be my age, the years weighed heavier on his sagging skin. Oh, yes, he rasped. I remember you. Back to haunt the old haunt, eh? Ha! When I didn't respond, he squinted at me suspiciously. You don't remember me? Staffin from... He paused to cough up some phlegm, which he spat on the ground. From school. He flashed blackened teeth. You know, my parents wouldn't let me play with you after that day. I suppose none of them did. Long time ago, though. Long time. He stared into the distance, lost in thought, then snapped back to the present. He grinned again. Come on, you can tell me. Did you do it? Did you kill the boy? The man's voice crackled in my ears like a radio's volume raised to breaking point. I saw the Barrow swell behind him in the distance. It broke the horizon in silence, a mountainous, bulging boil, a tick, gorging on blood and bone until, at last, it burst. The totem burned in my pocket. I squeezed it in my fist and felt it move. The lips wriggled against my palm, forming words that crawled into my throat. I opened my mouth to let them out. The world twisted around us as the words lacerated my vocal cords, tongue, and lips. The man's bloodshot eyes widened. He stumbled back, and I heard his breath rattle in his chest like a dropped marble. I felt the words I had spoken continue to tear through his insides in silence. I ended it with a gasping syllable, a great sucking gale slamming shut a door. With a pop, both the man's eyeballs shot into the back of his skull, and he crumpled to the ground. Curious, I thought, dismissing the muffled scream in the recesses of my mind. The blood pooling beneath the man and running down my chin brought a blissful certainty. I left the body there and returned to my car. Backpack donned and shovel in hand, I made my way into the forest. The people in Askmark had always referred to this place simply as the forest, and although those words hold a certain customary respect, it's insufficient. This is the taiga. When we enter it, our delusions of mastery in an ordered world are unceremoniously stripped away. Together in our billions, we can burn it all down and call it control, that much is true. But alone amongst the trees, we rank no higher than rats hiding in their holes, meat for the earth. We have forgotten this, but I think most ancient peoples knew it, and their gods knew it. Because under this very canopy, across untold millennia, even gods have been born and died. A hum slid into the silence between the trees. I hummed with it, fingering the totem in my pocket. Through the boles ahead, the hill rose. I was surprised to discover a line of low menhirs at the base of the hill, evenly spaced around its circumference. The moose must have drawn my attention away from them when I'd been here as a child. Menhir is a standing stone. Ah, okay. Orthostat or lith. A large upright stone emplaced in the ground by humans. All right. They stood vigil like petrified trolls in old folk tales, hair turned to moss, liver spots to green-orange lichen. Who had raised them? Although this was historically Sami land, I didn't know them to live this deep in the forest, nor to build mounds like this. I thought again of those other people, foundations of whose homes lined the outskirts of Askmark. As I passed between the stones, the totem bit into my flesh, drawing blood. I felt its hatred like a heat, but it was directed at the menhirs, not me. I shared its anger. We play with powers greater than us, setting in motion chains of events we don't understand. We do it still, as these people had done eons ago. Nothing's changed. Except they were dead and I was not. I would undo their work. It took me half an hour. It was buried deep. But after digging it out, I managed to topple the thing over. I touched the totem in a gesture of consolation, and it licked my bloody palm where it had bitten me. I climbed the slope. The last time I'd been here, it had been covered in snow, but now the bones were plain to see. They littered the ground in the hundreds. There were fresher carcasses, too. A fox, muzzle shrunken around its teeth. The burst belly of a boar writhed with maggots. No hale animals would approach, so the carcasses rotted from the inside. Stepping up to the edge of the hole, I felt as though I had leapt here from my childhood, with everything in between nothing but a momentary blur. The reek of death rose from the dark. I breathed deep, drawing in a quiet peace. Dig, the totem commanded. So I did. Except what? Was this hesitation? Why now? No. Unease crept in. Did the totem know my thoughts? But then, what did it matter? My conviction was pure. I believed in it. I had never been closer to the truth, to peace, to my purpose. I knew what I must do. Throw it in. Let's go down the dark path. I'll come back and do it again, and we'll look at the brighter choices. I fished the rope from my bag and a piton which I hammered into the ground and looped the rope around, then dropped it into the hole. Before going over the edge, I paused to look around. The trees dripped and dozed in the haze beyond the barrow. A raven cried out from the thicket, a pleading noise. I climbed into the hole. Darkness swallowed me. My eyes adapted. Oh, nice. I like how that reveals itself. I saw shapes, the outline of my hands. Above was as black as below. After a timeless descent, I touched down in a cold, cavernous silence. Reaching out to touch the walls, I found them gone. Dig, the totem commanded. I stood on rotting flesh and bones. How? I asked. Dig, it repeated. I plunged my shovel down, and it slid in with ease, as if into tilled earth. I dug. Through the meat and the bones I dug. Had I passed the boy's remains? No matter. I shoveled what I stood on to the sides, into the void, deeper, down into the black, where it waited. With jarring impact, my shovel struck stone. I dug around it. I found edges, stone cut to shape, a tomb. No, a sepulcher. I sought the opening, digging along the stone. Time became liquid, at times dripping, at times flowing. When the shovel snapped, my hands served. They carved the earth like divine tools, and one by one, my nails came off, yet I felt no pain. I moved mechanically, with certainty. I had never known peace like this. I stroked the surface of the stone, rubbing my blood into it, pressing my body to its cool surface, and could have stayed like that, if not for the promise that awaited. Finally it was done. I stood before it in the soft darkness. Tall as 3 men and 3 paces wide, a monolith of rough granite. On the front face, a panel crowded with etched runes. The totem hummed in my pocket. I pried my mangled fingers into the groove. My whole life had led to this. I pulled. The panel fell to the ground, and the air suddenly bore me down and pressed me to my knees. A new silence crushed the silence from before, like two great hands folding over my ears and head. With great effort, I raised my eyes. My totem was a feeble replica. The great severed head lay within the granite, taller than me, filling the entire hollow within the stone. I stared in breathless wonder, my teeth clenched as I trembled. The colossal head's lips wriggled and smacked. The eyes opened, jagged pits. I moaned and looked away. A stentorian groan filled my skull. I dared to glance up again and saw the great head's mouth slowly open like a hatch, tilting the upper half of the head back. The teeth were thick and gray as blocks of stone. The tongue had been ripped out. Tears flowed down my cheeks. I would set it right. I would fix it, restore him, rejuvenate him. I had roused him from his slumber all those years ago, roused but not released. I would set him free. Heavy air still crushing my body, I crawled through the opening in the stone, into the open mouth. I thought again of those forgotten people I had admired as a child, and cursed them as the jailers of this god of fathomless peace. Now I undid their work. I thought of my mother and her fear of the dark, with which she now shared eternity. I smiled as his mouth closed over me. He would rise from the dark, treetops at his waist, to once more sow his silence across the earth. Only a little roughness, I thought, as the chewing began, to have a giant on my side. The end. Ooh. Oh, that was a good story. Creepy. Terribly, terribly creepy. Okay. Let's see how quickly we can get to the other options. I'll edit it down for you. Okay. So I've gotten back to the point where the author has made the carving. Part of me wanted it close to me, yet another part of me quailed before it. If I were to seal it away, would it be cowardice or wisdom? Let's seal it away. I descended into my storage space in the apartment building's basement. I left the totem in a box of old Christmas decorations. Just another abandoned trinket. I had created it, and that was enough. It was just a thing. That night, I slept with my bedside lamp on, but in my dreams I was trapped in the small storage room with the totem. It gnashed its teeth in the darkness and snapped at my hands, biting off my fingers one at a time. I had to touch my fingers to know how many I had left. When only one remained on each hand, I awoke, and in the warm light streaming through my window, I felt like I had shed something, as one would a fever in the night. The next day I checked my phone. 2 missed calls from my dad. I sighed and phoned him up. My dad was a hard, brittle man who, like chalk, had been worn to a nub over time. A conversation with him was like trying to apply that remaining pebble to a chalkboard. His voice was even stonier than usual. Your mother's in the hospital. Stroke. The doctors think she only has a few days left. He gave me the name of the hospital and hung up without another word. I hadn't spoken to my parents since I'd left home to study nursing 3 years earlier. We never quite aligned, and we'd left it at that. I think we were both happy to live our lives separately. Still, I felt compelled to be there at the end. I remember the hospital room clearly. In a word, faded. The sheets were gray from 1,000 washes. The floor was a blotchy, muted pink. The fuller Bordeaux still visible in the corners where shoes and mop never reached. And my mother, she was the most faded of all. There was so little left of her. I wondered how such a thin vessel could hold anything at all. I gazed down at her unconscious form. A good memory surfaced. On rare occasions, when snow blanketed the field between our house and the forest, she'd prepare 2 cups of coffee. She wouldn't call me, knowing the aroma did so for her, and we'd simply sit in silence and look out at the trees, because to talk would be to risk angering each other. I took her hand now. I thanked her for trying and forgave her for giving up. I said these words in my head and tried to mean them, and that's all I could do. My father opened the door. I placed my mother's hand gently on the bed. "You'll keep the light on for her?" I asked. He nodded, and I left. In the years that followed, the Barrow loomed a little larger in my mind each day, and the hole that pierced it grew wider. For a while I continued my work as a nurse. But each death of a patient was like a collar around my throat being jerked. When I looked into their dead eyes, the face I had carved stared back. I was not yet free of it. It became a problem. I lingered too long around patients near death. I stared. Colleagues began to shun me. When I realized the doctors no longer trusted me, I quit. I tried to understand what was wrong with me. Therapy didn't work because I couldn't tell them the truth, so I read books. I dismissed obsession and even psychopathy. I was never devoid of empathy and abhorred to witness anyone suffer. The problem wasn't me. Oliver, that wasn't my fault. I was influenced. I was afraid. It was the hole on the hill, the face, the darkness, all of it. Whatever it was, I couldn't blame myself. A year after quitting my nursing job, I decided to return to Askmark. I was 30, and I had spent my life circling a drain, too afraid to plug it, to even look at the end of my path. The totem remained in the basement, staring in the dark. I considered whether to bring it or leave it behind. Had I made a mistake all those years ago, distancing myself from it? Was it a key or a curse? Perhaps it was neither. Let's leave it behind. With great difficulty, I left the totem behind. I bet there's a third option where you bring it and throw it in the hole. I was thinking about that. With great difficulty, I left the totem behind. As I drove, the air became increasingly thin, until I was left gulping in my car and had to pull over as my vision dimmed. Then all at once, with the snap of a band, I could breathe easy again. Askmark awaited. Askmark was small when I'd left it, but now seemed smaller still, in that peculiar way that reality shrinks next to childhood memories. Under the pale summer sun, without snow to hide under, the walls of the more modern concrete homes were stained with dirt and mold. The forest breezed at the edges of the town. For days I wandered the town aimless, sleeping in my car. Perhaps I was gathering courage. I recognized only a few people from my childhood, now so aged and firmly lodged in the grooves of their daily routine that I doubt they even noticed me. One gray morning, as rain hung in the air, I was passing near my old house when a hand grabbed me roughly by the arm. "Ah, yes." Drops says, "Come on, you can tell me. Did you do it? Did you kill the boy?" Man's voice crackled in my ears like a radio's volume raised to a breaking point. I saw the Barrow swell behind him in the distance. It broke the horizon in silence, a mountainous bulging boil, a tick gorging on blood and bone until at last it burst. Words erupted from the black pit and tore through my mind like a gale. Garbled, gibberish words engorged with malice. 1,000 kilometers away, I felt the totem scream. My throat closed. I gagged, my body convulsing. The man recoiled from me. Before I could collapse, he rushed away, throwing back fearful glances as if I'd follow him. I dropped to one knee, clutching at my chest, but the attack was momentary. With each passing second, the clamp around my throat relented, leaving me ashen and trembling. I was done waiting. I'd returned to this damn town for a reason. I went to my car, grabbed the backpack and shovel from the boot, and set off. I climbed the slope. The last time I'd been here, it had been covered in snow. No hail animals would approach, so the carcasses rotted from the inside. Stepping up to the edge of the hole, I felt as though I had leapt here from my childhood, with everything in between nothing but a momentary blur. The reek of death rose from the dark. The muttering of that damn totem crept into my mind, and I knew that had I brought it, I would already be on my way down. To find what? I had pondered this my whole life, researched it obsessively, to be entirely truthful. But I had found no answers in history books. Barrows were for kings and heroes, and this was no such thing. I could only trust my own instincts, and every fiber of my being told me this place was meant to be forgotten. The menhirs attested to that, but I believed it had failed. You could still climb in. The hole was the proof of it. The hole was the failure. The fingernail that scratched at the inside of the coffin, wearing it away, century after century, millennia after millennia. The hole was the call of what lay below. But it too had failed. So there I stood, in the same spot that Oliver had once occupied, a failure in my own right. I stabbed my shovel into the ground and began to fill the hole. Oh, I wasn't expecting that. The ground heaved beneath my feet, and a wild frenzy gripped me, the only thing between me and a terror that would undo me. Go on, I thought at the ground, at the world, at the thing buried inside it. Rage, rage, as I bury you. I entered a trance. Bury it. There's still time. The sun sank, turning the sea of green and gold. Bury it. Climb in. Bury it. My hands bled. Bury it. Climb in. The barrow shrank as night deepened, but the hole remained. Bury it. Climb in. Bury it. My body shrieked with pain. Bury it. As dawn broke over the dusty green canopy, my right arm ceased to respond. My palms were flayed, the shovel handle slick with blood. Half the barrow was gone. It hadn't been enough to fill the hole. I shook with regret and despair. With what little remained of my anger, I screamed into the hole. Pathetic. You're pathetic. The hole swallowed the sound as it had swallowed my life, leering in the corners of my mind, year after year, waiting, teasing, scratching at my insides. Fuck you, I hissed. Fuck you. You made me kill my friend. A lie. I stared, my exhausted mind grinding into realization with a resounding click. I had killed Oliver. He told me to jump over the hole, and I killed him for it. He'd bullied me. I was already small, and he made me feel smaller. But he was just a kid. So once again, I stood at the precipice, and it made me think of my mother. She had failed as a parent, but at least she had faced her fears. I said the words. I'm so sorry. I forgive you, Oliver. I tried to mean it, but I'm not sure I did. It wasn't enough. I had to do more. I had come all this way. I raised my foot. It hung in darkness. I stepped into it and fell. Darkness for a time. Stillness. Soft earth under my face. Sunlight through pink eyelids. I tried to rise, but my broken body only let me roll onto my back. I lay where the hole had previously been, now a circle of dirt. Had I filled it? I couldn't remember. I pushed myself to my knees and wept. The weight was gone. I looked up and couldn't remember the sky ever being so bright and sweeping, so full of cool air and sunlight. I thanked the menhirs and the people who raised them. Whatever lay below was their concern, not mine. There were more important truths. They would continue their vigil. That evening I awoke in an ambulance, already well outside Askmark. They told me I'd been found on the side of the road. A few days later I returned home. The first thing I did was to fetch the totem and hold it in my hands. The face, once inhuman and alien, a puzzle of shadows and meaning, was now nothing more than a mockery, barely more than lines. The eyes, those jagged, gaping pits, were dimples in the wood. The thing felt dead, but I still put it through a wood chipper later on. The hold on me was gone, and I was left barren, as though truth had scoured me to my bones. And yet a memory haunts me, a final image as I dragged myself away from the barrow. A wolf, its belly rent by a boar's tusk, intestines unspooled and caught in its legs, digging in the dirt where I had fallen. Oof. Well, that was a very dark story. But I'm still going to put it on the channel. It will be pretty easy to edit, thankfully. I'm tempted, because there's no background noise, I'm tempted to cut out any mistakes I make in the reading so that it's smoother. This will be, thank heavens, a breeze to render with a solid background. Yeah, so that was The Barrow, written by Marcus Hanson. You can find Marcus Hanson on Blue Sky. Marcus Hanson, 2 S's, .bsky.social, where you can follow their channel, Jellyfoosh. On itch.io. Thank you for joining me for this very dark tale, and I will see you next time.